The morning Chloe Mercer spilled scalding espresso across the chest of New York's most dangerous mafia boss, she had exactly $43 left to her name and 19 days before eviction. The entire executive floor held its breath, waiting for Dario Valenti to destroy her. Instead, he stared at the trembling girl kneeling in coffee and shame on his $10,000 rug and felt something crack inside the concrete where his heart used to live. That single clumsy moment would ignite a war that nearly burned Manhattan to ash. If you're watching, smash that like button and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Rain came down like nails against the windows of Valenti Maritime Holdings that Tuesday morning. Chloe stood outside the black glass tower on 47th Street with water soaking through her coat and her phone showing 3 missed calls from her landlord. The building rose into the gray sky like a knife blade. 49 floors of steel and secrets. She'd heard the stories. Everyone had. Dario Valenti didn't run a shipping company. He ran an empire held together with blood and intimidation. His secretaries never lasted longer than a week. Some said they quit. Others whispered darker endings. Chloe needed the job anyway. Her checking account had $43. Rent was 11 days overdue. The collection agency had started calling about her student loans. She'd applied to 72 positions in the last month. This was the only callback. The job posting had been bare bones, executive assistant, immediate start. The pay was triple what any legitimate office offered. That alone should have been a warning. She pushed through the revolving doors into a lobby that smelled like money and fear. Black marble floors, chrome fixtures polished to mirrors, security guards in suits that didn't hide the bulges under their arms. A receptionist with perfect hair glanced up from her desk. "I'm here for the assistant position," Chloe said. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. The woman's expression shifted, something like pity. "49th floor, they're expecting you." The elevator ride felt like descending into a tomb. Chloe watched the numbers climb. Her reflection in the brushed steel doors showed a girl wearing a thrift store coat and shoes with cracked leather. Her dark hair hung limp from the rain. She didn't belong here. Everyone would know it the second she stepped off this elevator. The doors opened. The entire floor stretched out in cold corporate perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Desks arranged in perfect rows. Men in expensive suits moved through the space like sharks. Nobody smiled. Nobody looked at her. The air itself felt heavy with unspoken violence. A woman approached, mid-40s, severe bun, eyes like a prison warden. "You're the new girl?" She didn't wait for an answer. "I'm Greta, office manager. Follow me." They walked past cubicles where men spoke in low voices about shipping manifests and port schedules. Except the numbers were wrong. Chloe had worked enough temp jobs to recognize cooked books when she heard them, container counts that didn't match tonnage, cargo manifests that referenced products without proper codes. These weren't legitimate shipping conversations. They were criminals pretending to be businessmen. Her stomach twisted. "The kitchen's there," Greta said, pointing to a door. "Mr. Valenti takes his espresso at 9 sharp. 3 shots, no sugar, no milk. If you're even 30 seconds late, don't bother coming back." "Understood," Chloe whispered. "His office is through those doors." "Knock twice. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't touch anything on his desk. Don't make eye contact for longer than 3 seconds." Greta paused. "And for the love of everything, don't spill anything." Chloe's hands were already shaking. The kitchen was industrial and spotless. The espresso machine looked like it cost more than her car. She found the beans in a locked cabinet. Premium Italian roast. She'd never made espresso before. Her previous jobs involved drip coffee and bulk brewers. This machine had more buttons than a cockpit. She managed to figure out the basics. Ground the beans, tamped them down, hit the extraction button. The machine hissed and gurgled. Dark liquid began streaming into the small ceramic cup. It smelled rich and bitter. She checked her phone. 8:58, 2 minutes to spare. She picked up the cup carefully, balanced it on its tiny saucer, started walking toward the office doors. That's when her heel caught on the edge of a floor mat. Time went strange. She felt herself pitching forward. The cup tilted. Hot espresso sloshed over the rim. She tried to recover. Overcorrected. Her shoulder hit the door just as it swung open. The cup flew from her hands. Everything happened in slow motion and all at once. The espresso arced through the air in a perfect brown wave. It hit the man standing in the doorway square in the chest, soaked through his white dress shirt, splashed across his charcoal suit jacket. Steaming liquid dripped down his tie. The man didn't move. Chloe's brain finally caught up to what her body had done. She'd just thrown boiling coffee on Dario Valenti. The office went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every phone call ended. The entire floor held its collective breath. Chloe dropped to her knees. The ceramic cup had shattered on the Persian rug beneath his feet. She started grabbing pieces with trembling hands. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean—" "Stop." His voice was quiet. That somehow made it worse. She looked up slowly. Dario Valenti looked like something carved from violence. Mid-30s, dark hair swept back, sharp jaw, amber eyes that seemed to calculate the exact cost of human life. Coffee dripped from his ruined shirt onto his $2,000 Italian shoes. He should have been screaming, should have been dragging her to the elevator, should have been making her disappear. Instead, he just stared at her. "What's your name?" he asked. "Chloe Mercer." She could barely get the words out. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Valenti. I'll pay for the dry cleaning. You're the new secretary." "Yes, sir." "Stand up." She stood. Her knees barely held her. Every person on the floor was watching now, waiting to see what happened to the girl stupid enough to assault the boss during her first hour. Dario studied her face. She tried not to cry, tried not to shake, failed at both. "Greta," he said without looking away from Chloe, "get me a new shirt, and someone clean this up." He turned and walked back into his office. The door closed behind him. Chloe stood there in shock. She wasn't dead. She wasn't fired. She didn't understand what had just happened. Greta appeared beside her. "You have exactly 1 hour to prove you can do this job without destroying anything else. Don't waste it." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of terror and adrenaline. Chloe answered phones with shaking hands, filed documents she didn't understand, organized schedules for men whose names she'd heard on crime podcasts. Nobody spoke to her. They all watched her like she was a bomb waiting to explode. At 11:30, Dario's door opened. "Chloe." Inside. She walked into his office on legs that felt disconnected from her body. The space was massive. Dark wood panels, leather furniture, windows overlooking half of Manhattan, a wet bar that probably cost more than her college tuition. The only thing out of place was the man himself. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, but his jaw was tight, dangerous. "Sit," he said. She sat in the chair across from his desk. He remained standing, looking at her like she was a puzzle that didn't make sense. "Where did you work before this?" he asked. "Temp agencies mostly. Data entry, reception, whatever they assigned." "College. 2 years. Dropped out. Student loans." Her voice barely functioned. "I'm sorry about the coffee, Mr. Valenti. It won't happen again." "You're clumsy." It wasn't a question. Chloe felt her face burn. "Yes, sir." "Nervous." "Yes, sir." "Broke." She swallowed. "Yes, sir." "And you took this job anyway." "I need the money." Something flickered across his face, almost like interest. "Most people hear the stories about working here and run the other direction. You didn't." "I can't afford to run." He leaned back against his desk, crossed his arms. "Do you know what I do, Chloe?" Her mouth went dry. This was a test. The wrong answer could end very badly. "You run a maritime shipping company." That's the polite answer. "That's the only answer I know, Mr. Valenti." His mouth curved, not quite a smile. Something colder. "You're smarter than you look. Good. I don't need someone smart. I need someone invisible. Someone who keeps their head down and doesn't ask questions. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." The previous secretary lasted 4 days. The one before her made it almost 2 weeks before she had a nervous breakdown in the bathroom and quit without notice. This job will destroy you if you let it. The hours are brutal, the work is demanding, and what you see here stays here, forever. Understood? Chloe nodded. "Say it out loud." "I understand." "Good." He pushed off the desk. "You start immediately. Answer my calls. Manage my schedule. Stay out of my way. Make me another espresso at 2. Don't spill it this time. She stood quickly, too quickly, knocked her knee into the corner of his desk. Pain shot up her leg. She bit back a curse. Dario watched her limp toward the door. Chloe, she stopped. You're either the unluckiest person I've ever met or the luckiest. I haven't decided which. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and left. The afternoon was somehow worse than the morning. Chloe answered 14 calls. 11 of them involved conversations that sounded like coded threats. The shipment from Atlantic City needs to be redirected. Tell Carlo we're moving up the timeline. The product won't clear customs without additional insurance. She wrote everything down and tried not to think about what any of it meant. At 2 o'clock, she made Dario's espresso. This time she walked with both hands wrapped around the cup, moved so slowly an elderly woman with a walker could have passed her. She knocked twice on his door. Come in. She entered carefully, set the cup on his desk without incident, started to leave. Wait. She froze. Dario was on a phone call. His voice was low and controlled, but there was steel underneath. I don't care what Santoro thinks he's owed. The territory lines were set 5 years ago. If he crosses them again, it won't be a conversation. He hung up, looked at Chloe. You're still here. You said wait. I did. He picked up the espresso, took a sip. Better. Thank you, Mr. Valenti. You can go. She made it halfway to the door before she tripped over nothing, caught herself on a side table. A glass paperweight wobbled, but didn't fall. Jesus Christ, Dario muttered. Sorry, she whispered. Do you have some kind of condition? I'm just clumsy. Clearly. She escaped before she could destroy anything else. The days bled together after that. Chloe arrived before dawn and left after dark. She learned the rhythms of the office. The men who visited Dario weren't businessmen. They were soldiers, enforcers, men with violence written into their bones. They spoke in euphemisms, but the meaning was always clear. Territories, collections, cleanups. This wasn't a shipping company. It was the administrative heart of a criminal empire. She kept her head down, did her job, tried to become invisible. But invisibility was harder when you kept breaking things. On Thursday, she shredded the wrong document. Dario caught it before it was too late, but his jaw went tight and dangerous. On Friday, she knocked over a vase during a meeting with 3 men who looked like they strangled people for fun. The vase shattered. Everyone stared at her. She cleaned it up with shaking hands while the men discussed moving product through the docks. By the end of her first week, Chloe had developed a reputation. The clumsy secretary who somehow hadn't been fired yet. Monday morning started with Greta dropping a stack of files on Chloe's desk. These need to be organized by date and cross-referenced with the shipping manifests in Mr. Valenti's office. Don't mix them up. Don't lose anything. And for the love of everything, don't knock them over. Chloe carried the files carefully into Dario's office. He was in a meeting. She could hear voices through the heavy door. She set the files on the corner of his desk and started sorting them. That's when she noticed the crimson leather ledger sitting open beside his laptop. She shouldn't have looked. It was none of her business, except the numbers were wrong. Glaringly, obviously wrong. She'd taken enough accounting classes to recognize manipulated entries. Container shipments listed at 10 million that should have been 6. Port fees inflated by 40%. Freight costs that didn't match tonnage. Someone was bleeding money from Dario's operation. The door opened behind her. Chloe jumped, knocked the files sideways. Papers scattered across the desk. She grabbed for them frantically. One sheet slid off the edge. She lunged. Her elbow hit the ledger. It tumbled to the floor with a heavy thud. Don't move. Dario's voice was cold, deadly. She froze with her hands full of loose papers. The ledger lay open on the Persian rug, numbers exposed. The men who'd been in the meeting with him crowded into the doorway. One of them had a gun poorly hidden under his suit jacket. I'm sorry, Chloe whispered. I didn't mean to. What did you see? Her brain screamed at her to lie, say nothing, claim ignorance. Instead, she heard herself say, the freight costs are wrong. Silence. What? Dario's voice was sharp. The freight costs. She pointed at the ledger with a shaking hand. They don't match the tonnage. Container shipments this size shouldn't cost this much. Someone's padding the numbers, probably skimming the difference. The men in the doorway shifted. Dario's eyes went dark and calculating. He picked up the ledger slowly, looked at the entries, then at Chloe. How do you know that? I took accounting classes. Before I dropped out. The math doesn't work. It's like someone's hiding another set of books inside the real ones. Dario stared at her for a long time. The air felt thin, dangerous. Then he looked at the men behind him. Out. All of you. They left. The door closed. Chloe was alone in the office with a mafia boss who'd just learned his secretary had discovered fraud in his empire. He sat on the edge of his desk. Show me. She blinked. What? Show me what you're talking about. She approached slowly, pointed to the entries that didn't make sense, walked him through the discrepancies, explained how the freight costs were inflated by routing charges through false intermediary companies. It was elegant fraud, hidden inside legitimate business expenses. Almost impossible to catch unless you were looking for it. When she finished, Dario was quiet. His jaw worked. She could see him processing, calculating. How long have you known about this? He asked. I just noticed it now, I swear. And you decided to tell me instead of keeping quiet. It's your money. She shrugged helplessly. Seemed like something you'd want to know. He laughed. Actually laughed. It was a dark sound that didn't reach his eyes. You're either the most honest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Probably both, Chloe admitted. He stood, walked to the windows, looked out at Manhattan stretched below them. Do you understand what you've just done? Made things worse? You've uncovered a betrayal my own underbosses missed for years. He turned back to her. Someone inside my organization is stealing millions, funding something, a rival operation, a coup. I don't know yet, but you just became the most valuable liability in this building. Chloe's stomach dropped. I won't tell anyone. I'll forget I saw anything. Too late for that. He moved closer. She backed up until she hit the desk. He leaned in, not touching her, but close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive. Dangerous. You know what people in my world do with loose ends, Chloe? She couldn't breathe. Please, I need this job. I won't. I'm not going to kill you. He said it like the idea was amusing. You're too useful, but you're not a secretary anymore. You're an asset, which means you don't leave my sight until I figure out who's betraying me. Understood? I don't understand anything, she admitted. Good. Keep it that way. He stepped back. Go home. Pack a bag. You're moving into the secured residence tonight. Guard detail will pick you up at 7. Wait, what? Whoever's stealing from me will realize you're a problem the second I start investigating. That makes you a target. I don't let my assets get killed before they're useful. He returned to his desk, picked up his phone. Greta will give you the address. Don't be late. Chloe stood there in shock. Mr. Valenti, I can't just move into... You can, and you will. He didn't look up. Unless you'd prefer I put you on the street where my enemies can find you first. Your choice. It wasn't a choice. She left his office in a daze. Greta handed her a key card and an address in Tribeca. The car will be there at 7. Don't make them wait. Chloe went home to her shitty studio apartment and packed everything she owned into 2 duffel bags. Her hands shook the entire time. She'd stumbled into something so far over her head she couldn't even see the surface anymore. This morning she'd been a broke temp secretary. Tonight she was being moved into protective custody by the mafia. The car arrived at 7 exactly. Black SUV, tinted windows. Driver who didn't speak. They took her to a building in Tribeca that looked like a fortress disguised as luxury condos. Security in the lobby, cameras everywhere. The elevator required a key card. Her apartment was on the 18th floor. It was bigger than her entire previous building. Modern kitchen, living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, bedroom with a king bed. Everything was expensive and cold and felt like a cage. She dropped her bags on the floor and sat on the couch. This was insane. She should run. Should call the police. Should do anything except sit here waiting to become collateral damage in a mob war. Instead, she pulled out her phone and Googled Dario Valenti. The search results were sanitized. Articles about his legitimate shipping business. Photos from charity galas. A profile in Forbes about his business acumen. But between the lines, she found the real story. Rumors of Sicilian family connections. Whispered associations with organized crime. 2 federal investigations that went nowhere. He wasn't just a criminal, he was untouchable. And she'd just stumbled into the middle of his empire holding evidence that could destroy someone powerful. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. Sleep well. Tomorrow we start finding out who wants me dead. No signature. It didn't need one. Chloe stared at the message until her screen went dark. Then she walked to the windows and looked out at New York glittering below. Somewhere in that maze of light and shadow, someone was stealing from Dario Valenti. Someone with access to his books, his systems, his trust. And somehow a clumsy girl who couldn't even carry a cup of coffee had become the key to exposing them. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and wondered how long she had before this whole thing exploded. The answer came faster than she expected. At 3 a.m, her phone rang. She jerked awake, grabbed it off the nightstand. Hello? Get dressed, Dario's voice. Sharp, alert. We're going to the docks. Someone just tried to hijack one of my shipments. I want you to see the manifest before they clean up the scene. It's 3 a.m. Crime doesn't keep business hours. Downstairs, 5 minutes. He hung up. Chloe sat in the dark bedroom of a strange apartment, holding a phone that connected her to a man who could make her disappear with a single word. She got dressed, because somewhere between the spilled coffee, the shattered vase, and the crimson ledger full of betrayal, Chloe Mercer had stopped being invisible. And in Dario Valenti's world, visibility was the most dangerous thing you could be. The SUV cut through empty Manhattan streets like a blade through water. Chloe sat in the back seat watching streetlights blur past while her heart hammered against her ribs. Dario was beside her, silent, his jaw set in that way that meant someone was about to have a very bad night. 2 guards rode up front. Neither spoke. The only sound was the engine and the occasional crackle of a radio. What am I supposed to be looking for? Chloe asked finally. Discrepancies. Dario didn't look at her. His eyes tracked the street, always watching, always calculating. Someone knew which shipment to hit, knew the route, the timing, the security detail. That information doesn't leak by accident. You think it's connected to the ledger. I know it is. The dock sprawled along the Hudson like a city built from rust and shadow. Shipping containers stacked in rows that stretched toward the black water. Cranes loomed overhead like skeletal giants. The SUV pulled through a gate where guards waved them past without checking credentials. They knew who Dario was. Everyone did. The vehicle stopped beside a warehouse with its loading door torn open. Bullet holes stitched across the metal siding. Glass scattered across the pavement caught the headlights like diamonds. 3 more SUVs were already there. Men in dark suits moved through the wreckage with flashlights and weapons. Chloe stepped out into cold air that smelled like oil and river water. Her breath fogged. She pulled her coat tighter and followed Dario toward the warehouse. Inside was chaos. Shipping containers ripped open, cargo scattered across the floor. Blood streaked the concrete in long, dark smears. She counted 4 bodies covered with tarps. Nobody seemed bothered by them. They were just obstacles to step around while the real work got done. A man approached Dario, 50s, gray hair, expensive suit that didn't hide the gun on his hip. Boss, we got here 20 minutes after the call came in. They were already gone. How many? Dario's voice was flat. At least 6, maybe more. Professional crew, in and out in under 10 minutes. What did they take? That's the thing. The man gestured toward the torn containers. They didn't take anything, just tore everything apart looking for something specific. When they didn't find it, they executed the security team and vanished. Dario's jaw tightened. Show me the manifests. They walked to a makeshift command station set up on folding tables. Laptops, documents, photos of the crime scene. Chloe hung back trying to stay invisible, trying not to look at the bodies under the tarps. The man pulled up shipping documents on a laptop. This container was supposed to have premium automotive parts, high-end European imports, clean paperwork, nothing that should draw attention. Chloe moved closer, looked at the screen. The numbers tickled something in the back of her brain. She pulled out her phone, opened the photos she'd secretly taken of the crimson ledger before everything exploded, started comparing entries. Wait, she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She felt her face flush but forced herself to keep talking. This container, the freight cost is inflated exactly like the ones in the ledger. Same pattern, same percentage over actual value. Dario was beside her in 2 strides. Show me. She pulled up the photos, pointed out the matching discrepancies. Whoever's cooking your books is using the same method here. They're marking certain shipments with inflated costs, like flags. Someone on the outside would know which containers to hit based on these numbers. They're using my own system to coordinate attacks, Dario said. His voice was dangerous and quiet. It looks that way. He turned to the gray-haired man. Pull every shipment in the last 6 months with freight costs over standard margins. I want manifests, routes, personnel files for everyone who had access, on my desk by morning. Boss, that's hundreds of... Then you better get started. The man nodded and started barking orders into his phone. Dario grabbed Chloe's arm. Not rough, but firm. Come with me. He led her away from the command station toward a quieter corner of the warehouse. Away from the bodies and the blood and the men with guns. You need to understand something, he said. His amber eyes were intense in the harsh fluorescent lights. What you just did back there, that makes you more valuable than half my underbosses. It also makes you more dangerous to whoever's betraying me. I'm just reading numbers, Chloe said. Her voice shook slightly. You're exposing a conspiracy. There's a difference. He released her arm, ran a hand through his dark hair. I need you to dig deeper. Go through everything, every ledger, every manifest, every goddamn receipt if you have to. Find the pattern, find who's behind this before they realize you're the one unraveling their operation. And if they already know, then we're both in trouble. They returned to the SUV as dawn started breaking gray and cold over the city. Chloe's entire body felt wired. Too much adrenaline, too little sleep. She watched Manhattan emerge from darkness as they drove back to Tribeca. The city looked different now, like she could see the violence hiding under all that glass and steel. Get some sleep, Dario said when they reached her building. I'll have everything sent to your apartment by noon. We start going through it this afternoon. You're coming here? I'm not letting you do this alone. Someone's going to notice when I start pulling records. When that happens, you become a target. He looked at her hard. I protect my assets. I'm not an asset, she said. It came out sharper than she intended. I'm a person. Something flickered across his face, almost like surprise. I know, that's the problem. He left before she could ask what he meant. Chloe rode the elevator to her apartment in a fog of exhaustion and confusion. She collapsed on the couch without taking off her coat. Sleep hit her like a hammer. She woke to pounding on the door. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Her phone said 1:15. She'd slept for almost 7 hours. The pounding came again. Harder. I'm coming, she called. She opened the door to find 2 men in suits holding document boxes. Behind them, Dario stood with his phone to his ear, finishing a conversation that sounded like a threat. Bring it all inside, he said to the men. They filed past Chloe into the apartment and started stacking boxes on her dining table. 6 boxes, each one full of files and ledgers and printed manifests. The men left without a word. Dario closed the door behind them. You look like hell, he said. Thanks. Chloe hadn't showered. Her hair was a mess. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes. I wasn't expecting company. Get used to it. He shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it over a chair. Rolled up his sleeves. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost human. Tired lines around his eyes. Tension in his shoulders. This was costing him something. She just didn't know what yet. Coffee, she offered. Please. She made coffee while he started unpacking boxes. By the time she brought him a mug, he had documents spread across the entire dining table. Ledgers open, manifests sorted by date, his laptop showing spreadsheets that made her head hurt. Start with these, he said, pointing to a stack of shipping manifests. Look for the same pattern you found before. Flag anything that doesn't make sense. They worked in silence for hours. Chloe cross-referenced documents until her eyes burned. Every 20 minutes, she found another discrepancy, another inflated cost, another container marked with numbers that shouldn't exist. The pattern was clear, systematic. Someone had been bleeding Dario's operation for at least 2 years. It's not just theft, she said finally. Whoever's doing this is smart. They're not taking enough to trigger automatic audits. They're spreading it across different accounts, different ports, making it look like normal cost fluctuations. How much total? Dario asked without looking up from his laptop. She did the math in her head. Conservative estimate? 30 million, maybe more. He went very still. 30 million. Give or take, it's hard to tell without seeing the actual bank transfers. Jesus Christ. He stood, paced to the windows. His hands flexed like he wanted to hit something. Someone's funding an entire operation with my money, building an army, buying territory, preparing to come at me. Do you know who it could be? I have enemies. He laughed darkly. But most of them don't have the patience for something this elaborate. This takes years of access, trust. Someone inside my inner circle. The way he said it made Chloe's skin crawl. How many people have that kind of access? 6, maybe 7. He turned to face her. My attorney, my accountant, 3 underbosses who handle port operations. My brother. Your brother? Half-brother. Marco. Dario's expression went flat. We don't talk much. Could it be him? I don't know. That's what scares me. His phone rang. He answered on the second ring. What? Chloe couldn't hear the other side, but she watched Dario's face change. Harden. When? A pause. Where is he now? Another pause. Don't let him leave. I'm on my way. He hung up, grabbed his jacket. What happened? Chloe asked. My accountant, Gerald Chen, he just tried to board a private flight to the Cayman Islands. Dario's voice was cold, controlled. They caught him at Teterboro with $2 million in cash and a fake passport. Oh my God, I need to go. He looked at her hard. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone except me or Greta. Understood? What are you going to do to him? What do you think? He left before she could respond. Chloe stood alone in the apartment, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and felt her stomach turn. She'd just helped catch someone who was about to die. Maybe not tonight, maybe not even this week, but eventually. That's how this world worked. Betrayal meant death. She spent the next 3 hours trying not to think about it, tried to focus on the documents, but her hands shook every time she picked up a new file. She kept seeing that look in Dario's eyes, cold, merciless. This was who he really was, a man who made people disappear. Her phone buzzed, text from Dario. Chen wasn't working alone. He gave up names. We're bringing them in. Don't wait up. Chloe didn't wait up. She couldn't have slept anyway. She worked through the documents until her vision blurred, found more discrepancies, more patterns. This conspiracy went deeper than Gerald Chen, way deeper. At 2 in the morning, she found something that made her blood run cold. One of the shell companies receiving fraudulent payments was registered under a name she recognized. Silas Barrett. Dario's corporate attorney, the man she'd seen at the office multiple times. Distinguished, expensive suit, kind smile. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands, called Dario. He answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Your attorney, Silas Barrett. He's part of it. Silence on the other end. Then, you're sure? His name is on 3 shell companies receiving payments from the inflated freight costs. He's been laundering the money. Gerald Chen was just the accountant. Barrett's the one orchestrating it. Son of a bitch. She heard him say something to someone else. Muffled orders. Then back to her. I'm coming to get you. We're finishing this tonight. Wait, what? Dario? Barrett doesn't know we're onto him yet. I want you there when we confront him. I need you to walk him through the evidence so he understands exactly how fucked he is. I can't. Yes, you can. This was your discovery. You earned the right to watch him fall. He hung up. 20 minutes later, Chloe was back in the SUV heading toward a location Dario wouldn't name. The city rolled past in darkness. She felt disconnected from her body, like she was watching herself in a movie that kept getting darker. They pulled up to a brownstone in the West Village. Looked expensive, quiet, not the kind of place where terrible things happen. 2 guards stood outside. They nodded at Dario as he approached. Inside was elegant, hardwood floors, expensive art. Silas Barrett sat in a leather chair in the living room wearing pajamas and a robe. His face was pale, terrified. 2 more guards flanked him, neither holding weapons. They didn't need to. Dario, Silas said. His voice cracked. What's this about? Your men showed up and... Shut up. Dario's voice was ice. Chloe, show him. She stepped forward on shaking legs, pulled documents from the folder she'd brought, laid them out on the coffee table. These are the shell companies you created. These are the fraudulent payments routed through them. These are the bank accounts in the Cayman Islands where the money ends up. You've been stealing from Dario for 2 years, $30 million. Gerald Chen was just moving the numbers. You were the architect. Silas stared at the documents. His hands trembled. That's not... I didn't... Don't lie to me. Dario moved closer. I've known you for 7 years, trusted you with everything, and you've been funding my enemies with my own money. Who are you working with? Who's the endgame? Dario, please. Who? The shout echoed through the brownstone. Silas flinched. Tears ran down his face. They said they'd kill my daughter. My wife. They had pictures, addresses. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Dario crouched down to eye level. Who threatened you? I don't know his name. He never told me. Just sent instructions, threats, money transfers. Bullshit. I swear. I never met him face to face. Everything was through encrypted messages, burner phones. I just did what he said and prayed he'd leave my family alone. Dario stood, looked at Chloe. Do you believe him? She studied Silas. The terror in his eyes looked real, but so did the guilt. I don't know, maybe? Wrong answer. Dario turned back to Silas. You're going to give me everything, every message, every instruction, every detail you remember, and then you're going to help me find whoever's behind this. If you do that, your family stays safe. If you don't, he left the threat unfinished. Silas nodded frantically. Anything. I'll tell you anything. What followed was 3 hours of interrogation. Silas talked until his voice went hoarse, gave up phone numbers, account details, meeting locations. Chloe took notes while Dario asked questions that peeled back layers of the conspiracy. By the time the sun started rising, they had a clearer picture. Someone had approached Silas 2 years ago, threatened his family, forced him to create the shell companies and funnel money into offshore accounts. That money was being used to fund a hostile takeover, not just of Dario's territory, of the entire Sicilian syndicate structure on the East Coast. It's a coup, Dario said finally. Someone wants to replace the old families with new leadership. They've been building an army with stolen money and waiting for the right moment to strike. Do you know who? Chloe asked. I have an idea. His expression was grim. There's only one person with the ambition and the connections to pull something like this off. My brother. The name hung in the air like poison. Marco's been running the Boston territory for 5 years, Dario continued. Always wanted more. Always felt like I got the empire because I was born first. This would be exactly his play. Subtle, long-term, using my own infrastructure against me. What are you going to do? Silas asked quietly. What I should have done years ago. Dario stood. Greta, have Marco brought to the office. Tell him it's urgent, family business. Don't let him bring his own people. One of the guards made a phone call, spoke in low tones, hung up. He'll be there in 2 hours. Dario nodded, looked at Chloe. You're coming. Why? Because you're the one who cracked this open. You deserve to see how it ends. They left Silas under guard and drove back to Manhattan as the city woke up around them. Morning traffic, coffee shops opening, people heading to normal jobs where nobody got interrogated in brownstones at 4 a.m. Chloe felt hollow, exhausted beyond sleep. She'd been awake for almost 24 hours, seen things that would give her nightmares for years. And somehow she was still moving forward because stopping meant thinking about what all of this meant. The 49th floor of Valenti Maritime Holdings was empty when they arrived. Too early for the regular staff, just guards and silence. Dario led her to his office, closed the door, poured himself a drink from the wet bar. You should eat something, he said. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You look like you're going to pass out. He ordered food from somewhere. It arrived 20 minutes later. Bagels, fruit, coffee that actually tasted good. Chloe ate mechanically, barely tasting anything. Her brain couldn't process food and conspiracy and exhaustion all at once. Why do you keep me around? She asked suddenly. Dario looked up from his phone. What? I'm a secretary who spills things and breaks things and stumbles into mob conspiracies. Why haven't you gotten rid of me? Found someone competent? He studied her for a long moment. You want the truth? Please. Because you're not scared of the right things. He set down his phone. Everyone in my world is terrified of me, my power, my reputation, my capacity for violence. They're so busy being afraid they miss everything else. But you? He almost smiled. You're scared of tripping, of spilling coffee, of saying the wrong thing. You're not scared of me. That makes you different, useful. I am scared of you, Chloe admitted. No. You're scared of disappointing me. There's a difference. Before she could respond, Greta's voice came through the intercom. He's here. Dario's expression shifted, went cold and dangerous. Send him in. The door opened. Marco Valenti looked like a younger version of Dario. Same dark hair, same sharp features. But where Dario carried violence like a second skin, Marco wore ambition. It radiated off him. He walked into the office smiling, confident. Brother, he said. Greta said it was urgent. What's going on? Sit down, Dario said. Marco's smile faltered. Is everything all right? Sit. Down. Marco sat. His eyes flicked to Chloe. Who's this? My secretary. She's the one who uncovered your little operation. The color drained from Marco's face. I don't know what you're... Don't. Dario's voice could have cut glass. I know about the shell companies, the stolen money, the plan to take over the East Coast territories. Silas Barrett gave you up. Gerald Chen gave you up. Everyone you corrupted is giving you up right now. Marco's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. You don't understand. The old ways are dying. The families are weak. I was trying to save us, make us stronger. By stealing from me. By building something better. You're so busy maintaining your little empire, you can't see it's already crumbling. I was preparing for the future. No. Dario stood, moved around the desk. You were preparing to stab me in the back the second you thought you could win. We're brothers. That stopped mattering when you betrayed the family. Marco shot to his feet. The family? You mean your control, your power. You never gave me a chance to be anything but your subordinate. I earned my place in Boston, built those operations from nothing, and you still treat me like a soldier. Because that's all you ever were. Dario's voice was quiet, dangerous. A soldier who got too ambitious. So what now? Marco's face twisted with rage. You gonna kill me? Your own brother? I should, but you won't. Marco laughed bitterly. Because you're weak, you always were. That's why I'm going to win. That's why... He moved fast, pulled a gun from his jacket, aimed it at Dario's chest. Everything happened in frozen seconds. Chloe screamed. Dario dove sideways. The gun fired. Glass shattered behind Dario's desk. The bullet missed by inches. Marco aimed again. Chloe didn't think. She grabbed the first thing her hand touched, a heavy crystal decanter from the wet bar, and hurled it across the office. Her aim was terrible. The decanter sailed wide, hit the wall, shattered into 1,000 pieces. But Marco flinched, turned toward the sound. That half second was all Dario needed. He launched himself across the desk, hit Marco hard. The gun went flying. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of fists and violence. Dario landed on top, drove his fist into Marco's face. Once, twice. Blood exploded from Marco's nose. The door burst open. Guards flooded in, hauled Dario off his brother before he could kill him. Marco lay on the Persian rug, bleeding and laughing. You think this ends with me? I'm just one piece. There are others. This city's going to burn, brother, and you won't be able to stop it. Get him out of here, Dario said. His voice was cold, empty. Lock him down. I want to know everyone he's been talking to, everyone involved. Tear apart his entire operation. The guards dragged Marco out, still laughing, still bleeding. The office went quiet. Dario stood in the wreckage, breathing hard. His knuckles were split, blood on his shirt. He looked at Chloe. She was pressed against the wall, shaking, tears streaming down her face. You okay? He asked. She nodded, couldn't speak. He moved toward her slowly. You threw a decanter at him. I missed. I know, but you tried. He reached out, wiped tears from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was so gentle it broke something inside her. That's twice you've saved my life by accident. I don't understand any of this, she whispered. Good, you're not supposed to. But she did understand. Too much. She understood that Dario Valenti's world was violence and betrayal, that people died here, that she'd just witnessed a brother try to murder a brother, and somehow she was still standing in the middle of it all. What happens now? She asked. Now, we finish this. Dario stepped back. Marco's not the top. Someone's been coordinating with him, funding him. We need to find out who before they realize the whole operation just collapsed. How do we do that? The Maritime Foundation Gala is tomorrow night. Every major player on the East Coast will be there. Politicians, mob captains. Whoever's behind this will have to show their face, make their move. He looked at her hard. I need you there with me. Why? Because you see things other people miss. Because you're the one who broke this conspiracy open. Because... trailed off. Because I trust you. The words hit her harder than they should have. I don't even own a dress for something like that, she said weakly. I'll take care of it. He pulled out his phone, started typing. Go home. Get some rest. I'll have everything you need sent to your apartment. Car picks you up at 7 tomorrow night. Dario, this isn't optional, Chloe. You're already in too deep. The only way out is through. He wasn't wrong. She left the office in a daze, rode the elevator down to the lobby, walked out into morning sunlight that felt too bright, too normal. The city moved around her like nothing had happened, like a man hadn't just tried to kill his own brother 49 floors above the street. Chloe made it back to her apartment, locked the door, slid down to the floor with her back against it. She'd come to New York broke and desperate, taken a job nobody wanted, spilled coffee on a mafia boss, somehow survived long enough to uncover a conspiracy that reached into the heart of his empire. And tomorrow night she'd be walking into a room full of predators wearing an expensive dress and pretending she belonged. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dario. Thank you for trying, for staying, for not running when any sane person would have. She stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, I don't think sanity was ever part of this equation. His response came immediately. Good. Insanity keeps you alive longer in my world. Chloe closed her eyes and tried to breathe. Tomorrow night at the gala, everything would come to a head. Whoever was orchestrating this coup would make their move, and she'd be standing right beside Dario when it happened. No more invisibility. No more hiding. She'd crossed a line she couldn't see back then, but understood now. The moment she picked up that crimson ledger. The moment she chose to tell Dario the truth instead of staying quiet. The moment she threw a decanter at a man with a gun. She wasn't a temp secretary anymore. She was something else, something dangerous. And tomorrow night, standing in a ballroom full of monsters disguised as Manhattan elite, Chloe Mercer would find out exactly what that meant. Because in Dario Valenti's world, there were only two kinds of people, the predators and the prey. And she was done being prey. The dress arrived at noon in a garment bag that probably cost more than Chloe's entire wardrobe. She unzipped it slowly and felt her breath catch. Emerald silk that looked like liquid poured into fabric. Simple lines, elegant, the kind of dress that transformed whoever wore it into someone else entirely. She tried it on in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked polished, dangerous, like she belonged in Dario's world instead of running from it. The dress hugged every curve, made her look taller, stronger. A pair of diamond earrings came in a separate box with a note in Dario's handwriting. Borrowed from the vault. Don't lose them. They're worth more than most people's houses. Chloe touched the diamonds carefully. They were cold and heavy against her fingers. Real wealth, real power. She put them on and watched how they caught the light. This was who she had to be tonight. Not the clumsy girl who spilled coffee. Not the broke temp secretary. Someone who could stand beside a mafia king without flinching. Her phone buzzed. Dario. Car's downstairs. Don't be late. She grabbed a small clutch, checked herself one more time, then rode the elevator down with her heart trying to climb out of her throat. The SUV waited at the curb. Dario stood beside it wearing a tuxedo that looked custom-made to kill. His dark hair was swept back, his jaw clean-shaven. He looked like money and violence wrapped in Italian wool. When he saw her step out of the building, something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe appreciation. He covered it quickly. You clean up well, he said. So do you. He opened the door for her. She slid into the back seat. He followed. The partition between them and the driver was up. Privacy glass. The city rolled past outside. Nervous? Dario asked. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pulled out his phone, showed her photos. These are the people who matter tonight. Vincent Calabrese runs the Jersey ports, been making noise about expanding territory. Anthony Russo, old family, Boston connections, could be working with Marco. And this woman, he swiped to another photo. Diana Marchesi. She took over her father's operations 5 years ago. Ruthless, smart. If someone's orchestrating a coup, she'd have the resources. Chloe studied the faces, tried to memorize them. What am I supposed to do? Watch. Listen. Tell me if you notice anything off. These people are good at hiding their intentions, but nobody's perfect. Someone will slip, make a move. When they do, I need you to catch it. And if I miss it, you won't. He said it with certainty, like he believed it more than she did. The Waldorf Royale rose into the Manhattan night like a temple to excess. Limousines lined the street, photographers behind velvet ropes, security everywhere. Chloe stepped out of the SUV and felt the cold air hit her bare shoulders. Dario offered his arm. She took it. They walked past the cameras together. Flashes exploded. Someone shouted Dario's name. He ignored them all, just kept moving forward with Chloe on his arm like she'd been there 1,000 times before. Inside was overwhelming. The ballroom stretched out in gold and crystal. Chandeliers hung from ceilings painted with scenes of angels and demons. Hundreds of people in tuxedos and evening gowns moved through the space like dancers in a choreographed nightmare. Waiters carried champagne on silver trays. A string quartet played something classical. Everything gleamed. "Stay close," Dario murmured. His hand rested on her lower back. Possessive. Protective. They moved through the crowd. People nodded at Dario, some with respect, some with fear. Nobody approached directly. He was an island of space in a sea of bodies. Chloe felt eyes tracking them, assessing her, wondering who she was and why she mattered. Dario Valenti, a man's voice, smooth, confident. They turned. Vincent Calabrese approached with a blonde woman on his arm. He was 60. Silver hair, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Vincent," Dario said neutrally, "I heard about the trouble at your docks. Terrible business." Vincent's tone was sympathetic, but his eyes were calculating. "If you need assistance with security, I have people. I'm handling it." "Of course. But if the situation becomes more complicated..." He let the offer hang in the air. "And who is this lovely creature?" "My associate," Dario said before Chloe could speak. "She's helping me with some financial matters." Vincent's eyes sharpened. "Financial matters. How interesting. I didn't realize you were expanding your team." "There's a lot you don't realize, Vincent." The threat was subtle but clear. Vincent's smile tightened. "Well, enjoy your evening." He moved away. The blonde woman glanced back at Chloe once. Her expression was unreadable. "He knows something," Chloe said quietly. "Everyone here knows something. The question is what they're willing to do with it." They continued circulating. Dario introduced her to a dozen people whose names she forgot immediately. Mob captains, politicians, businessmen who ran legitimate empires built on criminal foundations. Everyone smiled, everyone made polite conversation, and everyone was watching everyone else. Chloe felt like she was swimming through shark-infested water. Then she saw him, a man standing near the bar, mid-40s, expensive tuxedo. Face she'd seen in the documents back at her apartment. He was talking to another man. Their conversation looked casual, but their body language was wrong. Too rigid, too controlled. "Dario?" she whispered. 10 o'clock. By the bar. The man in the navy tuxedo. Dario glanced over casually. "That's Richard Foster, corporate attorney. Represents half the families on the East Coast. He's also on the board of 3 shell companies that received money from Silas Barrett's accounts." Dario's expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on her back. "You're certain?" "I spent 6 hours looking at corporate filings. His name came up 14 times. "Who's he talking to?" Chloe watched the other man. "I don't know. I've never seen him before." "That's Anthony Russo, the Boston connection." Chloe's stomach dropped. "They're working together." "Looks that way." Dario pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "I just sent their photos to my people. We'll know everywhere they've been in the last 6 months by morning." "What do we do now?" "We watch them." See who else they talk to. Map the entire network before we burn it down. They spent the next hour shadowing Foster and Russo without being obvious. Watched them move through the crowd, shake hands, share drinks. Every interaction looked innocent, but Chloe noticed patterns. Certain people got more attention, longer conversations, private asides near the windows. She was mentally cataloging faces when she saw something that made her blood freeze. Greta. Dario's office manager stood near the back of the ballroom talking to Richard Foster. Their conversation was brief. Foster handed her something small. Greta tucked it into her purse and walked away. Dario, Chloe said. Her voice came out strangled. What? Greta, she just took something from Foster. Dario followed her gaze. His entire body went still. You're sure it was her? Positive. He pulled Chloe toward the exit, fast enough to be urgent, slow enough not to draw attention. They made it to a private corridor away from the ballroom. Dario pulled out his phone and made a call. Where's Greta right now? He listened. His expression turned dark. Find her. Don't let her leave the building. He hung up, looked at Chloe. She's not in the ballroom anymore. What does that mean? It means she's running. He started walking. Come on. They moved through the service corridors of the Waldorf, past kitchens where staff worked frantically, through hallways lined with equipment and storage. Dario moved like he'd memorized the layout. 2 guards appeared from nowhere, fell into step behind them. Loading dock, one of them said. She's heading for the loading dock. They burst through a heavy door into the cold night air. The loading dock was a concrete platform overlooking a dark alley. Delivery trucks, dumpsters, emergency lighting that cast everything in harsh shadows. Greta stood at the edge of the platform. She'd changed out of her evening gown into street clothes. A black SUV idled in the alley below. She turned when she heard them. Her face was pale but composed. Greta, Dario said. His voice was cold. Going somewhere? I'm done, Dario. Her hand shook slightly, but her voice stayed steady. I've worked for you for 9 years, covered up your crimes, watched you destroy people. I'm done being part of it. Is that what you told yourself when you started working with my enemies? She flinched. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when they threatened to kill your son. Greta's voice cracked. They have pictures of him, of his school. They said if I didn't help them, they'd make him disappear. What was I supposed to do? Come to me. You? She laughed bitterly. You would have asked me to sacrifice him for the greater good, for the empire. I've seen you make that calculation 100 times. Don't pretend you would have saved him. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Tears ran down her face now. You're not capable of putting anyone before your power. That's why everyone around you eventually betrays you. We all realize the same truth. You'll never value us more than your empire. Dario took a step forward. Who threatened your son? Does it matter? Tell me. Diana Marchese. Greta wiped her eyes. She approached me 2 years ago, said she was building something better, something that would replace the old families. All I had to do was feed her information, schedules, shipping routes, personnel files, small things at first. Then bigger. I couldn't stop. Every time I tried, she showed me new pictures of my son. Where is she now? I don't know. She contacts me, not the other way around. Dario pulled out his phone, typed something. Diana Marchese left the gala 20 minutes ago. She's in the wind. One of the guards stepped forward. Boss, we got movement in the alley. Everyone turned. The black SUV's doors opened. Men in tactical gear poured out. 6 of them, armed, moving fast. They aimed weapons at the loading dock. Get down! Dario grabbed Chloe and dove behind a stack of pallets. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the air where they'd been standing seconds before. Wood splintered. Concrete exploded. The guards returned fire. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like lightning. Chloe pressed herself against the cold concrete. Her ears rang. Her heart hammered so hard it hurt. This was happening. This was real. Someone was trying to kill them. Stay down, Dario shouted over the gunfire. He had his own weapon out now. Fired 3 controlled shots at the alley. One of the tactical guys dropped. More gunfire. The loading dock turned into a war zone. Greta screamed, ran toward the interior door. One of the attackers tracked her movement. Fired. She fell. Chloe watched Greta hit the concrete, blood spreading dark beneath her, her eyes wide and shocked, then empty. Jesus Christ, Chloe whispered. Dario emptied his magazine into the alley. We need to move, now. He grabbed Chloe's hand and pulled her toward the interior door. One of his guards covered them, the other was down, not moving. They made it inside just as another burst of gunfire chewed up the door frame behind them. The corridor was chaos, sirens wailing, people screaming. The attack had triggered panic throughout the hotel. Guests in evening wear fled toward exits. Security tried to maintain order and failed. This way, Dario said. He pulled her through the crowd. They moved against the flow of bodies, deeper into the building instead of toward the exits. Where are we going? Chloe gasped. Somewhere they won't expect. They took a service elevator down. Dario used a keycard to access restricted floors. The elevator dropped into the sub-basement, concrete tunnels, mechanical systems, the guts of the building. There's a tunnel system under the old hotel, Dario explained. Connects to 3 other buildings. Prohibition-era smuggling routes. Most people don't even know they exist. They moved through the tunnels fast. Chloe's heels clicked against concrete. The emerald dress was completely impractical for running. She kicked off the shoes and kept moving barefoot. Behind them, the sound of pursuit. Boots on concrete, voices shouting orders. They're following us, Chloe said. I know. They ran harder. The tunnel branched. Dario chose left without hesitating. More running, more darkness. Chloe's lungs burned. Her feet were bleeding. She didn't care. The tunnel ended at a ladder. Dario went up first, pushed open a heavy metal hatch. Cold air rushed in. He pulled Chloe up after him. They emerged in an alley 3 blocks from the Waldorf. Different neighborhood. Industrial. Dark. The sounds of pursuit had faded. For now. Dario pulled out his phone. Made a call. I need extraction. Now. He gave coordinates. Hung up. Looked at Chloe. She was a mess. Dress torn, feet bleeding, hair wild. The diamonds still hung from her ears, absurdly expensive amidst the destruction. You okay? He asked. Greta's dead. I know. They killed her right in front of us. I know. This is insane. Chloe felt hysteria rising. This whole thing is insane. What are we even doing? Why are we running? Because Diana Marchese just made her move. Dario's voice was grim. The attack at the docks. Marco's betrayal. Greta feeding her information. It was all leading to tonight. She waited until we were vulnerable, until we thought we'd won. Then she struck. But why? What does she want? Everything. He leaned against the brick wall. She wants to replace me. Take my territories, my operations. Become the dominant power on the East Coast. And she's been planning it for years. What do? We survive long enough to figure out her next move. Then we destroy her before she destroys us. A black sedan pulled into the alley. Different from Dario's usual vehicles. Civilian plates. The driver was someone Chloe didn't recognize. Dario opened the back door and pushed her inside. Slid in after her. Safe house in Queens, he told the driver. They drove through Manhattan in silence. Chloe watched the city blur past. Everything looked normal. People walking dogs. Couples leaving restaurants. Nobody knew that a war had just exploded inside the Waldorf. Nobody cared. I need to ask you something, Dario said quietly. Chloe looked at him. His face was shadowed, tired. When Greta said I don't value people more than my empire, do you think she was right? The question surprised her. I don't know you well enough to answer that. You've seen enough, spent enough time in my world. You must have an opinion. Chloe thought about it, really thought about it. I think you're capable of caring about people, but I also think you're scared to, because caring makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability gets you killed. He was quiet for a long time. My father used to say the same thing, before his own brother put a bullet in his head over a territory dispute. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me an important lesson. Trust is a luxury people like me can't afford. He looked at her. But you make me want to try anyway. That's dangerous. Why? Because wanting things makes you weak, and I can't afford to be weak. Not now. Not with Diana coming for everything I've built. The safe house was a brownstone in Astoria. Quiet street. No obvious security. They went inside and found it spartanly furnished. Functional. A place to hide. Not to live. Dario locked the door, drew the curtains, made several phone calls while Chloe sat on the couch trying to process everything that had happened. Greta was dead. Marco was locked up somewhere. Diana Marchese was orchestrating a coup that had been years in the making. And somehow Chloe was still alive, still in the middle of it all. Dario finished his calls and sat down heavily. My people are pulling together everything we have on Diana, her operations, her allies, her resources. We'll have a full picture by morning. And then what? Then we go to war. Chloe pulled off the diamond earrings carefully, set them on the coffee table. I'm not a soldier, Dario. I'm a secretary who got lucky a few times. I don't know how to fight a war. You've been fighting one since the day you spilled coffee on me. You just didn't realize it. That's different. How? Because nobody was shooting at me then. They are now. He leaned forward. I can send you away, put you on a plane to anywhere you want. New identity, new life. You'd be safe. But I need you, your mind, your instincts, the way you see patterns nobody else catches. Diana's smart. She's had years to plan this. I need every advantage I can get. Chloe looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion, the fear he was trying to hide, the weight of an empire crumbling around him. He was asking her to stay, to fight, to risk her life for a world she'd stumbled into by accident. If I stay, she said slowly, if I help you, what happens after, when this is over? I don't know. Nobody ever gets to after in my world. We just survive until the next threat. That's a terrible answer. It's an honest one. She thought about her apartment, her overdue rent, the normal life she'd been desperate to maintain. All of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. A different Chloe who didn't know how to read criminal ledgers or dodge bullets or watch people die. I'll stay, she said, but not because you need me, because I need to see this through. I need to know if we can actually win. We can't, Dario said, but we might survive. That's the best I can offer. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the quiet street. Diana made one mistake tonight. What's that? She let us escape, which means she's not ready for the final move yet. She's still positioning pieces, still building to something bigger. That gives us time. How much? Not enough. He turned back to her, said, get some sleep. Tomorrow we start dismantling her operation piece by piece. It's going to be brutal. Chloe didn't sleep. She lay in the small bedroom staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Greta falling, saw the blood spreading across concrete, heard the gunfire echoing through her skull. Somewhere in the city, Diana Marchese was planning her next move, and Chloe was going to help Dario destroy her. Because somehow in the chaos and violence and terror, she'd stopped being a temp secretary trying to survive. She'd become something else, something dangerous enough that people wanted her dead, and that terrified her more than anything. Because if she survived this, if she made it through the war that was coming, she'd never be able to go back to who she was before. The girl who spilled coffee and tripped over her own feet was gone. In her place was someone who knew how to read criminal conspiracies, how to dodge bullets, how to look death in the face and keep moving forward. Chloe stared at the ceiling and wondered if that was survival or damnation. Maybe in Dario's world, they were the same thing. Dawn came gray and cold through the brownstone windows. Chloe hadn't slept. She sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching Manhattan emerge from darkness. Her feet were bandaged. The emerald dress hung over a chair like a ghost. Everything from last night felt distant and immediate at the same time. Dario appeared in the doorway. He'd showered, changed into dark tactical clothing. He looked like a man preparing for war. Coffee's in the kitchen, he said. She found him standing over a laptop at the dining table. Papers spread everywhere, photos, maps, personnel files. His eyes were bloodshot but focused. He hadn't slept either. What did you find? She asked. Diana's network is bigger than I thought. He pointed to a map of the East Coast with red pins marking locations. She's been quietly taking over territories for 3 years, using front companies, shell corporations, making it look like organic business expansion. By the time the old families realized what was happening, she already controlled half their operations. How is that possible? Money, patience, ruthlessness. He tapped another document. She inherited her father's empire 5 years ago. Everyone thought she'd be weak, a woman in a man's world. They underestimated her. She used that, played dumb while building an army. Chloe studied the map. The red pins formed a pattern, closing in on Manhattan from every direction. She's been surrounding you for years. Last night was supposed to be the final move. Public assassination at the gala. Make a statement. But we escaped. Now she's vulnerable. Her timeline is disrupted. She has to accelerate. What does that mean for us? It means she's going to come hard and fast. No more subtle moves, no more patience. She'll throw everything at us. He looked up. His amber eyes were dark, determined. We have maybe 48 hours before she regroups and strikes again. We need to hit her first. How? By doing what she doesn't expect, going on offense instead of hiding. He pulled up a file on his laptop. Diana runs everything from a corporate headquarters in Midtown. 53rd floor of the Apex Tower, legitimate shipping company on paper, criminal empire in reality. She thinks it's untouchable, too public, too visible. You want to attack her there? I want to walk through the front door and burn her operation to the ground. Chloe stared at him. That's insane. It's the only move she won't see coming. She expects me to go defensive, secure my territories, call in allies, build up forces. That takes time. Time she can use to consolidate power. But if I hit her now while she's still celebrating last night's attack, I can destabilize her entire network before she realizes what's happening. You'll get killed. Maybe. But at least I'll take her with me. The certainty in his voice scared her more than the plan. This wasn't strategy. This was suicide dressed up as offense. What do you need me to do? She asked quietly. He looked surprised. You're not arguing? Would it matter? Probably not. Then tell me what you need. He handed her a tablet. These are Diana's financial networks, the legitimate companies funding her criminal operations. I need you to find the weak points, the accounts that would cause maximum damage if they suddenly disappeared. Can you do that? Chloe took the tablet, started scrolling through corporate structures and offshore accounts. Her brain shifted into the analytical mode that had started this whole nightmare. Numbers and patterns, hidden connections. It was almost comforting, something she understood. She worked for 3 hours straight, barely moved, barely breathed. Just let her mind map the web of Diana's empire. Found the pressure points, the accounts that funneled money to dozens of shell companies, the investment funds that looked legitimate but financed criminal operations, the weak links in an otherwise perfect structure. Here, she said finally. Marked 6 accounts on the tablet. These are the keystones. If these accounts get frozen or drained, her entire financial network collapses. She can't pay her people, can't move product, can't fund operations. It would cripple her. Dario studied her work. How fast can this happen? If you have someone who knows banking systems, hours, maybe less. He made a phone call, spoke in rapid-fire Italian, hung up. I have someone. He's the best. If anyone can crack these accounts, it's him. What happens after we hit her finances? Then we hit her people, her underbosses, her soldiers, everyone who supports her. We dismantle the empire from the inside while she's scrambling to stop the bleeding. He closed the laptop. And then we go for her directly. At the Apex Tower. At the Apex Tower. When? Tonight. Chloe's stomach dropped. That's not enough time to plan. We don't have time. Diana's probably already figuring out we're not dead. Every hour we wait gives her more chances to come at us. We move tonight, or we don't move at all. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Dario made calls, coordinated with people Chloe never saw. Weapons appeared, tactical gear, communication equipment. The brownstone transformed from safe house to war room. Chloe stayed at the dining table working through Diana's financial structures, finding more vulnerabilities, more weak points. She barely ate, barely registered the men coming and going. Just focused on the numbers because the numbers made sense. The numbers didn't try to kill you. At 4 in the afternoon, Dario's phone rang. He listened. His expression shifted. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. Lock it down. I'm on my way. He hung up, looked at Chloe. Diana just hit 3 of my warehouses simultaneously, burned them to the ground, killed everyone inside. Oh my God. She's accelerating faster than I thought. We need to move now. Tonight's too late. Wait, what? We're going now. Right now. He was already moving, grabbing gear. Get dressed. Something you can move in. We leave in 10 minutes. Chloe's brain struggled to catch up. Dario, I'm not a soldier. I can't. I know, you're staying in the car, but I need you close. Need your eyes on the financial systems while we're inside. Real-time intelligence. Can you do that? She nodded because what else could she do? This was happening. No more time to prepare. No more planning. Just action. She changed into jeans and a dark sweater, pulled her hair back, looked at herself in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a temp secretary. Now she was about to participate in a mob war. The motorcade consisted of 3 SUVs, 12 men total, all heavily armed. Chloe rode in the second vehicle with Dario and 2 guards. Nobody spoke. The tension was thick enough to cut. They drove into Midtown in late afternoon traffic. The Apex Tower rose into the gray sky like a monument to corporate ambition. Glass and steel, 70 floors. Diana's empire lived on the 53rd floor, disguised as a legitimate shipping company. We're going through the parking garage, Dario said. Security there is lighter. We get to the service elevators before they realize we're inside. Then up to 53, fast and hard. What about building security? Bought off. They'll be looking the other way for exactly 12 minutes. After that, we're on our own. The SUVs descended into the underground parking structure. Concrete pillars, fluorescent lights. The vehicles stopped near a service door. Everyone piled out fast, moved with military precision toward the entrance. Chloe stayed in the SUV with 1 guard and a laptop connected to Diana's financial networks. She could see everything on the screen, watch the accounts in real time. Dario had given her a communication earpiece. She could hear him breathing as he moved through the building. We're in, his voice crackled, heading to the elevators. On the laptop screen, numbers started shifting. Dario's financial specialist was already working, draining accounts, transferring funds to holding companies that would freeze them, making Diana's money disappear in real time. First account is locked, Chloe said into her mic. Moving to the second. Copy that, Dario replied. She heard gunfire through the earpiece, sharp cracks, shouting. Then Dario's voice again. We've got resistance. 53rd floor security is engaged. Moving forward. Chloe's hands shook as she typed. Marked the second account, watched it drain. Second account frozen, working on 3. More gunfire. Someone screamed. The audio cut out for 5 seconds. When it came back, she could hear heavy breathing, running footsteps. We're inside her operations center, Dario said. Place is massive. Computers everywhere, files. This is her command center. Copy that, one of his men replied. Planting charges now. Wait, Chloe said. Her eyes caught something on the screen. A transaction moving through one of Diana's remaining active accounts. Large transfer. Real time. Dario, she's moving money, big amount, 20 million, transferring it somewhere. Can you see where? Chloe traced the transaction. Offshore account, Cayman Islands. But there's a secondary transfer scheduled. She checked the timestamp. 3 minutes. To a domestic account. What account? She pulled up the details. Felt her blood turn to ice. It's a security company. Private military contractors. She's paying for more soldiers. They're scheduled to arrive at the Apex Tower in... She checked the notes attached to the transfer. They're already here. Building perimeter. You're about to be surrounded. Shit. Dario's voice was sharp. How many? The payment is for 40 operatives, full tactical gear. Dario, you need to get out, now. Not until this place is ash. She heard him talking to his men, giving orders. Set the charges. 2 minutes. Then we extract. Chloe's screen lit up with an alert. The third account she'd been draining suddenly reversed course. Money flooding back in from multiple sources. Dario, she's moving her reserves, compensating for the frozen accounts. She knows what we're doing. Then we need to move faster. How many accounts left? 3, but she's shoring up defenses on all of them. I don't know if we can crack them before... An explosion rocked the SUV. Chloe screamed. The guard beside her grabbed his weapon, looked out the window. Contact! We've got incoming! Tactical operatives were flooding into the parking garage. Black gear, assault rifles, moving like professionals. They opened fire on the SUVs. Bullets tore through metal and glass. The guard returned fire through the shattered window. "Chloe," Dario's voice in her ear. "What's happening?" "They found us. The contractors are here." She ducked below the seat as more bullets punched through the vehicle. The laptop was still in her lap, still showing Diana's accounts. "I'm trapped." "Hold on, we're coming." "No, don't. If you come down here, they'll pin you between floors. Finish the mission." The guard beside her took a bullet to the shoulder, fell back against the seat, blood everywhere. Chloe grabbed his weapon without thinking. She'd never fired a gun before. Didn't know how. But the guard pointed at the safety. "Flip that. Point. Pull trigger. Go." She flipped the safety. Leaned up. Saw tactical operatives advancing on the SUV. Pointed the weapon. Closed her eyes. Pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly broke her wrist. The sound was deafening. She had no idea if she hit anything. Just kept pulling the trigger until the magazine was empty. When she opened her eyes, one operative was down. The others had taken cover behind concrete pillars. "Jesus," she whispered. The injured guard was on his radio. "All units, we're pinned in the garage. Need immediate extraction." Oh, gun. More gunfire. The SUV's windows were completely gone now. Chloe pressed herself against the floor, still holding the laptop, still watching Diana's accounts drain. Her specialist was working frantically. 4th account frozen, 5th account in progress. Above them, a massive explosion shook the entire building. Chloe felt it through the concrete, heard car alarms going off, sprinklers activated, water started raining down from the ceiling. "Charges detonated," Dario's voice. Breathless. "Diana's operations center is gone. We're extracting now." "Negative," another voice cut in. "Exit routes are blocked. They've got the elevators shut down. Stairwells are full of hostiles." "Then we go through them." What followed was 3 minutes of hell. Chloe listened through the earpiece as Dario and his men fought their way down from the 53rd floor. Every few seconds, someone reported position, casualties, hostile count. The numbers kept getting worse. In the parking garage, the contractors regrouped, started advancing on the SUVs again. More coordinated now. Chloe had no weapon, no way to fight back. The injured guard was unconscious, bleeding out beside her. She looked at the laptop. One account left, the last major financial artery feeding Diana's empire. If she could freeze it, Diana would be crippled, but the contractors were 20 feet away, 10 feet, 5 feet. "Come on," she whispered to the laptop. "Come on." The account drained, froze, locked. At the same moment, the side door of the SUV was ripped open. A contractor aimed a rifle at her face. "Don't move!" Chloe raised her hands, still holding the laptop. "I'm not armed." "Who are you?" "Nobody. I'm nobody." He grabbed her, dragged her out of the SUV, threw her against a concrete pillar. Her head bounced off the stone. Stars exploded across her vision. The laptop clattered to the ground. "We've got Valenti's secretary," the contractor shouted into his radio. "Repeat, we have the girl." Through her swimming vision, Chloe saw more SUVs arriving, more contractors. They were setting up a perimeter, creating a kill box, waiting for Dario to emerge from the building. This was the trap. They'd used her as bait. "Dario," she gasped into her earpiece. "Don't come out. It's a trap. They're waiting for you." "Where are you?" "Doesn't matter. You need to find another way out. They'll kill you if you come through the garage." "I'm not leaving you. You have to." "No." His voice was absolute, final. "I protect my people. Always." Chloe felt tears burning her eyes. "Then we're both dead." "Not yet, we're not." She heard more gunfire, closer now. The contractors around her turned toward the service entrance. Dario and his remaining men burst through the door, 5 of them left, against 40 contractors. The numbers were impossible, but they came anyway. Dario moved like violence given form, fired his weapon in controlled bursts, dropped 2 contractors before they could react. His men spread out, took cover behind vehicles, returned fire. The parking garage became a war zone. Chloe was still pressed against the pillar, trapped in the middle of the firefight. Bullets whined past her head, ricocheted off concrete. She made herself as small as possible and prayed. One of Dario's men went down. Then another. The contractors were closing in. Professional, methodical. They had superior numbers and position. This was a massacre in slow motion. Dario made it to a concrete pillar 10 feet from Chloe. Blood streaked his face from a cut above his eye. His suit jacket was torn. He looked at her. Their eyes met across the chaos. "When I move," he said, "you run. Understand? I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are." He ejected his empty magazine, slammed in a fresh one. "This ends tonight, one way or another, but you get out. You survive. You tell people what Diana did. Promise me." Dario promise me. "I promise." He nodded, took a breath, then stood up from cover and opened fire. It was suicide. Deliberate. Drawing all the attention to himself. Giving her a chance to run, Chloe ran. She sprinted towards the exit while gunfire erupted behind her, made it to the ramp leading out of the garage. Kept running. Her lungs burned. Her vision swam. She could still hear the battle behind her, still hear Dario fighting impossible odds. She burst out onto the street. Evening had fallen. People scattered at the sight of her. Blood on her clothes. Terror in her eyes. She kept running. Didn't know where. Just away. Away from the death and the bullets and the man who'd just sacrificed himself so she could escape. 2 blocks away, she collapsed in an alley, pressed her back against brick and tried to breathe, tried to think. Her earpiece had fallen out somewhere. She couldn't hear anything, didn't know if Dario was alive or dead. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. It was cracked, but functional. She had one message, sent 15 minutes ago from an unknown number. "You took everything from me. Now I'm taking everything from you, starting with him. Diana." Diana had known they were coming, had prepared for it, turned Dario's offense into a trap, and now he was probably dead. His men were dead. Everything was gone. Chloe stared at the message until her vision blurred. She'd helped him plan this, told him where to hit, how to cripple Diana's finances, and Diana had been 3 steps ahead the entire time, using Dario's attack as an opportunity to eliminate him permanently. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire trucks, emergency responders converging on the apex tower. Someone would find the bodies, start investigating, connect the dots. Chloe needed to disappear before that happened. She forced herself to stand, started walking, away from the sirens, away from the tower, away from everything. Her phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. "Parking garage, sublevel 3. Now, come alone or I kill him." Chloe stopped walking. Dario was alive, but Diana had him. This was another trap, obviously. Diana wanted her to come back, wanted to eliminate the last loose end. If Chloe went back to the apex tower, she'd die. Simple as that. She looked at the message again. "Come alone or I kill him." Chloe turned around, started walking back toward the tower, because somewhere between the spilled coffee and the crimson ledger and the bullets and the blood, she'd made a choice without realizing it. She'd chosen Dario, chosen this world, chosen to stop running. And if that meant walking into a trap to save a man who'd tried to save her, then that's what she'd do. The parking garage was chaos when she returned. Emergency vehicles blocked the entrance. Police tape everywhere. But sublevel 3 was below the main garage, accessible through a secondary entrance most people didn't know about. Chloe found it, descended into darkness. The lower level was empty, silent, just concrete and shadow and the smell of gun smoke. She walked slowly, every footstep echoing, every nerve screaming at her to run. She found them in the center of the space. Dario was on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back, blood running down his face. 2 contractors flanked him with rifles pointed at his head, and standing in front of him, wearing an expensive suit and holding a pistol, was Diana Marchesi. She was beautiful, late 30s, dark hair pulled back, cold eyes that assessed Chloe like she was calculating her worth. "There you are," Diana said. Her voice was smooth, cultured. "I was worried you'd be smart and run. Glad to see you're predictably stupid instead." Chloe stopped 20 feet away, raised her hands. "Let him go." "Why would I do that?" "Because you already won. His organization is destroyed. His people are dead. His finances are frozen. You got what you wanted. Let him go." Diana smiled. "I don't have what I wanted yet. I wanted him dead. But then you went and froze my accounts. Cost me almost $100 million. So now I want you to watch him die. Call it compensation for the inconvenience." She raised the pistol, aimed it at Dario's head. "Wait," Chloe shouted. "I can get your money back. Unfreeze the accounts. All of them. Just let him live." Diana paused. "You can do that?" "Yes. I have access to the systems. I can reverse everything, right now, but only if you let him go." "You're lying." "I'm not. Let me prove it." Chloe pulled out her cracked phone, held it up. "Give me 2 minutes. I'll show you." Diana considered, then lowered the pistol slightly. 2 minutes. If I don't see money moving, I put a bullet in his head. Chloe's fingers flew across her phone screen. She was bluffing. She couldn't unfreeze the accounts. The specialist who'd locked them had designed them to be permanent. But she could make it look like she was trying. Buy time. Hope for a miracle. She pretended to type. Watched fake progress bars, prayed. "Time's up," Diana said after 90 seconds. "Wait, it's processing." "Isham use ma basura set." "You're lying." Diana raised the pistol again. "I should have known better than to trust a desperate girl playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand." She pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the concrete space. But Dario didn't fall. Because Chloe had moved. Thrown herself forward without thinking. Put her body between the gun and Dario. The bullet hit her in the shoulder. Spun her sideways. She hit the concrete hard. Pain exploded through her entire body. White hot. Overwhelming. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Just pain. "Jesus Christ," Diana muttered. "Fine. You want to die first? Be my guest." She aimed at Chloe again, but before she could fire, the parking garage filled with light and sound. Police. Dozens of them. Flooding in from every entrance, weapons drawn, shouting orders. Someone had called them. Must have seen Chloe return. Reported suspicious activity. Something. Diana's contractors scattered. Chaos erupted. Gunfire. More shouting. Through her fading vision, Chloe saw Dario tackle Diana. Saw them struggle for the weapon. Saw it go flying across the concrete. Then everything went dark. She woke up in an ambulance, sirens wailing, lights flashing past the windows. A paramedic was working on her shoulder, applying pressure, saying things she couldn't process. "Dario," she gasped. "Don't talk," the paramedic said. "You've lost a lot of blood. Just stay still." "Is he alive?" "I don't know who you're talking about. Just focus on breathing." But she couldn't focus. Couldn't stop trying to see out the ambulance windows, trying to know if he'd made it, trying to know if the man she'd taken a bullet for was still alive somewhere in the chaos they'd created together. The ambulance raced through Manhattan toward a hospital whose name she'd never remember. And all Chloe could think was that she'd chosen this, chosen him, chosen to stop being invisible. And now she was paying the price in blood and pain and uncertainty. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness took her was her own reflection in the ambulance window. The girl staring back was a stranger, someone who'd walked through fire and emerged transformed. Someone who'd loved a man who lived in darkness. Someone who'd finally stopped running. And as the world faded to black, Chloe Mercer realized she had no idea if any of them would survive to see morning. Pain woke her, sharp and immediate in her left shoulder. Chloe's eyes opened to fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. Hospital room, machines beeping steadily beside the bed. IV drip in her arm, bandages wrapped tight around her torso. She tried to sit up, her body screamed protest. "Don't move." A nurse appeared beside the bed. Young, tired eyes. "You were shot. Bullet went clean through, but you lost a lot of blood. You need to stay still." "How long have I been here?" 18 hours. You've been in and out of consciousness. The surgery went well, but you need rest." Chloe's brain struggled to process. 18 hours. The parking garage. Diana. The gunshot. Dario on his knees with blood running down his face. Police flooding in. Everything after that was fragments. "There was a man," Chloe said. Her throat was raw. "Dark hair. Injured. Was he brought here?" The nurse's expression closed off. Professional distance. "I can't discuss other patients. I'm sorry. Please, I need to know if he's alive. Let me get the doctor. He can answer your questions better than I can." The nurse left. Chloe stared at the ceiling, trying not to panic. Dario could be dead. Could have died in that parking garage while she was unconscious. She'd never know. Never get to tell him that taking that bullet wasn't heroic or stupid. It was just the only choice that made sense in the moment. The door opened. But it wasn't a doctor. Two men in suits, federal agents by the look of them. One was 50s with gray hair, the other younger. Both had that cop look. Hard eyes that had seen too much. "Miss Mercer," the older one said. "I'm Agent Morrison, FBI. This is Agent Chen. We need to ask you some questions about last night." Chloe's stomach dropped. "I want a lawyer. You're not under arrest. We just need information about what happened at the Apex Tower. 23 people died, including several private military contractors and organized crime figures. You were found at the scene with a gunshot wound. We need to understand your involvement." "I don't know anything. That's not what the surveillance footage shows." Morrison pulled out a tablet, showed her images. Chloe in the parking garage with the laptop. Chloe running from the gunfire. Chloe returning and confronting Diana Marchese. "You were actively involved in what appears to be a coordinated assault on a criminal organization. That makes you either a witness or an accomplice. Which is it?" "I want a lawyer," Chloe repeated. Morrison sighed. "Miss Mercer, Diana Marchese is claiming you and Dario Valenti orchestrated an unprovoked attack on her legitimate business. She's willing to testify that you helped plan a terrorist action that resulted in multiple deaths. Right now you're looking at federal charges. RICO violations, conspiracy to commit murder. You could spend the rest of your life in prison, unless you cooperate." "Where's Dario?" "In custody. He's not talking either, but we have enough evidence to put him away for life. The only question is whether you go down with him." Chloe closed her eyes, tried to think through the fog of pain and medication. The FBI wanted her to flip on Dario, give testimony that would seal his fate in exchange for her freedom. It was a simple equation. Save herself or protect the man who'd pulled her into this nightmare. "I want a lawyer," she said again, "and I'm not saying anything else without one present." Morrison and Chen exchanged looks. The older agent put away his tablet. "We'll be back. Think carefully about your options, Miss Mercer. The window for cooperation closes fast." They left. Chloe was alone again. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside her window, she could see Manhattan gray and cold under winter clouds. Somewhere in this city, Dario was locked up, probably injured, definitely facing charges that would bury him. And she was the key witness who could either save herself or go down with him. The door opened again. This time it was a woman in an expensive suit, lawyer written all over her. She closed the door and approached the bed. "Miss Mercer, my name is Patricia Huang. I represent the Valenti family interests. Dario sent me." "He's alive?" "Yes. Injured but alive. He's being held at Metropolitan Correctional Center pending arraignment. The charges are extensive, but that's not why I'm here." She pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down. "Dario wanted me to give you a message. He says you don't owe him anything. If the FBI offered you a deal, take it. Walk away. Start over somewhere safe. He'll take responsibility for everything that happened." Chloe stared at her. "He's giving me an out. He's giving you your life back. The one you had before all of this." "I can't go back to that life. That person doesn't exist anymore." "Then go forward to a new one, somewhere far from New York. Somewhere his enemies can't find you. Dario has resources, money. He can set you up with a new identity, a fresh start. All you have to do is accept the FBI's deal and disappear." It was everything Chloe had wanted 3 weeks ago. Safety, distance, a chance to be invisible again. No more bullets, no more blood, no more waking up terrified that today would be the day she died. "What happens to him?" she asked. "He'll likely spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Maybe ADX Florence if they decide he's too dangerous for general population. He understands that. He's accepted it. What he won't accept is you suffering for his choices." "And Diana? What happens to her?" Patricia's expression hardened. "Diana Marchese is claiming self-defense. Says Dario attacked her operations unprovoked. She has lawyers, political connections, money. Unless someone can prove she orchestrated the conspiracy, she'll walk away clean. Probably end up controlling most of the East Coast territories once Dario's locked up. So she wins. She survives. In this world, that's the same thing." Chloe looked at her bandaged shoulder, thought about the bullet that had torn through her, the pain that still radiated with every breath. Diana had pulled that trigger. Diana had built an empire on theft and murder and betrayal. Diana had killed Greta, had tried to kill Dario, had nearly killed her, and now Diana was going to walk away untouched while Dario rotted in prison. "No," Chloe said quietly. "I'm sorry? Tell the FBI I'll cooperate, but not the way they want. I'll testify about everything, but I'm testifying against Diana, not Dario." Patricia leaned back. "Miss Mercer, that's not how this works. The FBI wants Dario. He's the bigger target. Diana's playing the victim. Without concrete evidence of her conspiracy, your testimony won't be enough." "I have evidence." Chloe's mind was working now, clear despite the medication. "The laptop from the parking garage. It has all of Diana's financial records, every account, every shell company, every payment to contractors and corrupt officials. It's all there, time-stamped, documented, proof of everything." The laptop was damaged in the shooting. The FBI's tech team couldn't recover the data because they don't know where to look. Chloe smiled despite the pain. "I do. I built backups, stored them in encrypted cloud servers, multiple redundancies. I learned that from working temp jobs. Always save your work. Always have a backup." Patricia's expression shifted. "You can access those backups? Give me a computer in 30 minutes. I'll give you everything you need to bury Diana Marchese." For the first time since entering the room, Patricia smiled. "You're smarter than Dario gave you credit for." "Everyone underestimated me. That was my advantage." Patricia stood. "I'll talk to the prosecutors. Set up a meeting. If what you're saying is true, if you can actually provide evidence of Diana's conspiracy, this changes everything. But Miss Mercer, you need to understand what you're doing. Going after Diana means making yourself a target. She has resources, connections, people who'll come for you. She already tried to kill me. How much worse can it get?" You'd be surprised. But Chloe wasn't scared anymore. She'd been shot, had watched people die, had stood in parking garages while bullets flew past her head. Fear was something that happened to the old version of herself. The girl who spilled coffee and tripped over her own feet. That girl was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned how to fight back. The meeting happened 2 days later in a secure conference room at the FBI field office. Chloe sat at a table with her new lawyer. Across from her were Morrison, Chen, and 3 federal prosecutors. Patricia Huang sat beside her, and on a laptop in front of them were 2 years of Diana Marchese's criminal empire laid bare. "These are the shell companies Diana used to launder stolen funds," Chloe said. Her shoulder still hurt, but she ignored it, walked them through the evidence methodically. "These are the payments to contractors. Here are the offshore accounts. These documents show her coordinating with Marco Valenti to orchestrate a coup against Dario's operations. And these..." She pulled up encrypted messages recovered from Silas Barrett's files. "These are direct communications between Diana and her co-conspirators, including orders to execute anyone who discovered the conspiracy." Morrison studied the evidence. His expression gave nothing away. "How did you obtain all of this?" "I was Dario's secretary. He asked me to investigate financial discrepancies in his accounts. I found the conspiracy. Traced it back to Diana. Everything here was obtained through legitimate corporate records and documents voluntarily provided by people involved in the conspiracy." "Silas Barrett and Gerald Chen are both dead," one of the prosecutors said. "Their testimony can't corroborate this, but their files can. And Diana's own financial records, everything's time-stamped, cross-referenced. You can verify every transaction, every payment, every shell company. It's all real." The prosecutors exchanged looks. Morrison leaned back in his chair. "If this evidence is legitimate and we can verify it holds up in court, we're looking at RICO charges against Diana Marchese, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, racketeering. She'd be looking at life without parole." "What about Dario Valenti?" Chen asked. "What about him?" Chloe met his eyes. "He's still a criminal. The evidence you're providing doesn't exonerate him. He runs a mafia organization. He's responsible for crimes that span decades." "I'm not here to defend Dario. I'm here to make sure Diana doesn't get away with what she did. What you do with him is your business, but I won't testify against him, only against Diana." "That's not your call to make," Morrison said. "Actually, it is. You need me, my testimony, my evidence, my cooperation. Without me, you have circumstantial cases against both of them. With me, you can take down one of the most dangerous criminal masterminds on the East Coast. Your choice. Go after the man who's already broken, or go after the woman who's still building her empire? The room went quiet. Chloe could see them calculating, weighing options. Dario was the known quantity, the target they'd been chasing for years. But Diana was the future, the threat that would only get bigger if left unchecked. We'll need time to review the evidence, Morrison said finally. Verify its authenticity, but if it checks out, we'll consider your proposal. Consider isn't good enough, Patricia interjected. My client wants immunity for any involvement in Dario Valenti's operations in exchange for her full cooperation against Diana Marchesi. That's the deal. Take it or walk away. More silence. More calculation. We'll have an answer by tomorrow, Morrison said. The meeting ended. Patricia walked Chloe out of the federal building into cold afternoon air. Manhattan moved around them like the last 2 weeks hadn't happened, like people weren't dead, like empires hadn't fallen. You did well in there, Patricia said. They'll take the deal. The evidence is too good to pass up. What happens to Dario? He'll still face charges, but without your testimony, the case is weaker. He might be able to negotiate a plea, reduce sentence, 10 years instead of life. That's still a long time. It's better than death, which is what Diana wanted for him. Chloe watched cars pass, tried to imagine Dario behind bars for a decade, tried to imagine her life continuing without him in it. The math didn't work. They'd been tangled together for such a short time, but it felt like years, like she'd known him forever. Can I see him? She asked. He specifically asked me to keep you away, said it's too dangerous, that you need to move on. I don't care what he wants. Can you get me in? Patricia studied her. You really care about him. I took a bullet for him. I think that answers your question. Taking a bullet is easy. It's instinct. Survival. Loving someone in this world is much harder. I didn't say I loved him. You didn't have to. Patricia pulled out her phone, made a call, spoke quietly, hung up. I can get you 20 minutes, tomorrow afternoon. But, Miss Mercer, I need you to understand something. Dario's world destroys everyone it touches. You've seen that, lived it. If you walk away now, you have a chance at something better. But if you stay connected to him, even from a distance, you'll never be free of this life, never be safe. Is he really worth that? Chloe thought about the question, really thought about it. I don't know, she said honestly, but I need to find out. Metropolitan Correctional Center was exactly as depressing as Chloe imagined. Concrete and wire, guards with dead eyes, the smell of institutional food and despair. She went through security, surrendered her phone and bag, followed a guard through corridors that all looked the same. The visiting room was small, a table, 2 chairs, a window where guards could watch. Dario was already there when she arrived. Orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him, a bruise darkening his jaw, cut above his eye stitched closed. He looked thinner, harder, like prison was already carving away the parts of him that had been almost human. He stood when she entered, their eyes met across the small room. You shouldn't be here, he said. I know. Patricia was supposed to keep you away. She tried. He almost smiled. Of course she did. They sat. The table between them felt like miles. Chloe could see the guard watching through the window. 20 minutes. That's all they had. I testified, she said, against Diana. I gave the FBI everything, all the evidence, all the records. They're building a RICO case against her. She's going down. Dario's expression didn't change. And me? I didn't testify against you. Refused. They weren't happy, but they took the deal. You'll still face charges, but without my testimony, Patricia thinks you can plead to reduce time. You could have walked away, been free of all this. I know. So why didn't you? Chloe looked at her hands, the IV bruises still visible on her wrist. Because someone once told me that trust is a luxury people like you can't afford. But wanting to try anyway is dangerous. You said I made you want to try. I guess I wanted to see what that looked like. It looks like this. He gestured at the room, the prison. Me locked up, you with a bullet scar, both of us paying prices we never should have had to pay. Maybe, but we're alive. Diana tried to kill us both and we're still here. That counts for something. It counts for survival, not victory. In your world, aren't they the same thing? He looked at her hard. You're quoting Diana now. No, I'm quoting you. You taught me that. Survival is the only victory that matters. Dario leaned back, His cuffed hands rested on the table. What happens now? To you? Patricia's helping me relocate. New city, new identity. Witness protection until Diana's trial is over. After that? She shrugged. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to school, finish my degree, get a legitimate job that doesn't involve mob conspiracies. That sounds boring. It sounds safe. You hate safe. You proved that when you came back to the parking garage instead of running. He wasn't wrong. The old Chloe would have run, would have chosen safety over everything. But that girl had died somewhere between the spilled coffee and the gunshot wound. What emerged in her place was someone who'd learned that safety was an illusion, that the only real protection came from being strong enough to fight back. Tell me something, she said. That day I spilled coffee on you. You could have fired me, could have made me disappear. Why didn't you? Dario was quiet for a long moment. Because you looked at me with fear but not greed. Everyone in my world wants something from me. Power, money, protection. But you just wanted to keep your job, to survive. That was honest, real. I hadn't seen honest in a long time. That's a terrible reason to keep someone around. Maybe. But it worked out. You saved my life multiple times, destroyed a conspiracy that would have buried me, took a bullet meant for my head. He looked at her with something that might have been affection, might have been regret. You're the best mistake I ever made, Chloe Mercer. The words hit harder than they should have. What happens to you? She asked. After the plea, federal prison, somewhere far from New York. I'll serve my time, keep my head down, try not to get killed by someone who wants revenge for something I did in another life. And after? There is no after, not for people like me. Prison is just a different cage, but at least you'll be free. Will I? Chloe leaned forward. Because I don't feel free. I feel like I'm leaving half of myself behind in this room. That's survivor's guilt. It'll fade. Will it? He reached across the table, touched her hand with his cuffed fingers. The contact was brief, electric. It has to. Because I can't carry the weight of knowing I destroyed you too. Everyone close to me ends up dead or damaged. I won't do that to you. You didn't do anything to me. I chose this, all of it, every step. You chose survival, not me. Same thing. No, it's really not. The guard knocked on the window, 5 minutes remaining. Chloe felt time collapsing. Everything she wanted to say crowding her throat, but words felt inadequate for what had happened between them. The violence and the fear and the strange intimacy of surviving impossible things together. I'm not going to wait for you, she said finally. 10 years is too long. By the time you get out, I'll have a whole different life. Different name, different city, different everything. You need to know that. I know, but I'm also not going to forget you, or what happened, or who I became because of it. Good. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Don't forget. Don't let yourself go back to being that scared girl who walked into my office 3 weeks ago. Be the woman who took down Diana Marchese, the woman who refused to run even when running was the smart choice. Be her, always. What if I don't know how? You do. You've known this whole time. You just needed someone to believe in you long enough for you to believe in yourself. The guard knocked again. Time was up. Chloe stood slowly. Her shoulder protested. Everything hurt. But she forced herself to look at Dario one more time, memorize his face, the amber eyes, the hard jaw, the way he looked at her like she was worth something more than her mistakes. Goodbye, she said. Not goodbye. Just see you later. You don't believe that. No, but it sounds better. She left the room before she could say anything else, before she could ask him to wait for her, before she could make promises neither of them could keep. The guard led her back through the corridors. Back through security, back out into Manhattan, where life continued unchanged. She walked 6 blocks before the tears came. Then she sat on a bench in Madison Square Park and let herself cry for everything that had happened, everything that was lost, everything that would never be. A week later, Diana Marchese was arrested at her Apex Tower office. Federal agents swarmed the building, seized files, computers, assets. The news showed her being led out in handcuffs, her expensive suit, her cold expression. She didn't look scared, just inconvenienced. Chloe watched the footage from a hotel room in Philadelphia. First stop on her relocation. Patricia had set her up with new documents, new bank accounts, Enough money to start over somewhere far from New York. Tomorrow she'd be on a plane to Denver. New identity, new life. She turned off the news and stared at the ceiling. 3 weeks ago she'd been broke and desperate. Now she was someone else entirely, someone with blood on her hands and scars on her body, and knowledge of how dark the world really was. The girl who'd spilled coffee on a mafia boss was gone forever. In her place was a woman who'd walked through fire and survived. Patricia had told her the trauma would fade, that eventually the nightmares would stop, that she'd learn to live with what she'd done and seen. Chloe didn't believe her, but she'd keep moving forward anyway. Because that's what survivors did. They kept walking even when every step hurt, even when looking back was easier than looking forward. She thought about Dario locked in his cell, wondered if he was thinking about her too, wondered if he regretted any of it. The coffee, the conspiracy, the bullet, all of it. Probably not. Regret was a luxury people like him couldn't afford, just like trust, just like love. She fell asleep thinking about amber eyes and Italian suits, and the strange way disaster could look like destiny if you squinted hard enough. The trial took 6 months. Chloe testified for 3 days, walked the jury through every document, every transaction, every piece of evidence that proved Diana Marchese had orchestrated a criminal conspiracy that spanned years and killed dozens of people. Diana's lawyers fought hard, tried to paint Chloe as an accomplice, a scorned associate, a liar. But the evidence was too strong, the financial records too detailed, the testimony too consistent. The jury deliberated for 18 hours, guilty on all counts. Diana Marchese was sentenced to life in federal prison without possibility of parole. Chloe watched the sentencing from the gallery. Diana turned as the marshals led her away. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Diana's expression promised revenge, promised that this wasn't over, promised that even from prison she'd find a way to make Chloe pay. Chloe stared back and didn't flinch. Let her try. After the trial ended, Chloe returned to Denver. The city had become home in the strange way places do when you have nowhere else to go. She'd enrolled in community college, finished her accounting degree, got a job at a small firm that handled taxes for small businesses. Normal work, boring work, safe work. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, went to work, came home, tried to build something that looked like a regular life. But some nights she'd wake up sweating, heart racing, hearing gunfire that wasn't there, seeing blood that had soaked into concrete months ago. The therapist Patricia had connected her with said it was PTSD, said it would get better with time. Time passed, the nightmares didn't stop, but she learned to live with them. Learned that some experiences carved themselves so deep they became part of who you were. Learned that survival wasn't about forgetting, it was about carrying the weight and moving forward anyway. 3 years passed. Chloe was 27 now. She'd made manager at the accounting firm, had friends who didn't know anything about her past, dated occasionally, built a life that looked normal from the outside. But inside she still carried New York, still carried bullets and blood and the memory of a man in an orange jumpsuit telling her to be someone worth remembering. Then one morning she opened her email and found a message from Patricia Huang. The subject line was simple: he's out. Chloe's hands shook as she opened it. Dario Valenti was released from federal custody yesterday after serving 7 years of his sentence. Good behavior. Cooperation with authorities. He's been relocated under supervised release. I thought you'd want to know. P. 7 years. Not 10. He'd gotten out early. Chloe stared at the email for 20 minutes. He was out. Free. Somewhere in America rebuilding a life just like she had. Maybe he'd changed. Maybe prison had transformed him into someone different. Or maybe he was still the same man who'd ruled a criminal empire with violence and calculation. She'd never know unless she reached out. But reaching out meant opening doors she'd spent 3 years trying to close. Meant risking the stability she'd built. Meant potentially falling back into a world she'd barely escaped the first time. She closed the email. Went to work. Tried to forget. But that night she dreamed about coffee spilling across Italian suits. About crimson ledgers and parking garages and amber eyes that saw through every defense she'd ever built. She woke up at 3 in the morning and pulled out her laptop. Opened the email again. Read it 12 times. Then she opened a reply and stared at the blank space for an hour. Finally she typed, "Where is he?" Patricia's response came within minutes, like she'd been waiting. That's complicated. Are you sure you want to know? Chloe thought about the question. Really thought about it. She'd built a good life in Denver. Safe, stable, normal. Everything she'd wanted 3 weeks into working for Dario Valenti. But it also felt like living in black and white after experiencing the world in color. She typed back, I'm sure. 3 days later, Chloe walked into a coffee shop in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Patricia had given her the address. Said Dario was working there, trying to rebuild his life legitimately, staying clean. The shop was small, local, windows overlooking a quiet street. She saw him before he saw her, standing behind the counter making an espresso. His dark hair had gray at the temples now. His face was harder, thinner. Prison had carved away everything soft and left something that looked almost fragile. He looked up as she approached the counter. Recognition flashed across his face. Surprise. Something that might have been joy. Chloe, he said quietly. Hi. They stared at each other across 7 years and 1,000 miles, and everything that had happened in a parking garage that felt like another lifetime. You want coffee? He asked. Is it safe? He almost smiled. I've gotten better. Haven't spilled a cup in months. Then yes. He made her a cappuccino. Perfect foam art. His hand steady. When he set it on the counter, their fingers brushed. The contact was electric, familiar, like no time had passed at all. You're in Santa Fe, she said. Supervised release. Can't leave the state. Have to check in with a parole officer weekly. Work a legitimate job. Stay away from anyone connected to my old life. He gestured at the coffee shop. This is my life now, making lattes for tourists. It's not exciting, but it's honest. Do you miss it? Your old life? Every day. But I'm trying to be someone different. Someone who doesn't destroy everything he touches. How's that going? Ask me in another 7 years. She picked up the cappuccino, took a sip. It was perfect. You really did get better. I had a lot of time to practice. Prison kitchen coffee is terrible. Gave me motivation to learn properly. They talked for an hour. About nothing and everything. Denver. Santa Fe. The years between. What they'd become. What they'd lost. Other customers came and went. Dario made their drinks. Came back to Chloe between orders like a gravitational pull neither could resist. Why did you come here, Nis? He asked finally. Patricia must have told you where I was. You could have stayed away. Kept your life separate from mine. Why risk it? Chloe looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the man he'd been and the man he was trying to become. Saw the weight he carried and the scars that matched her own. Because someone once told me that trust is a luxury people like us can't afford, but wanting to try anyway is dangerous. She set down her empty cup. I wanted to see if dangerous was worth it. And? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out. He leaned across the counter, close enough that she could smell coffee, and something underneath that was just him. I spent 7 years trying to forget you, trying to convince myself you'd moved on, built something better, didn't need the ghost of who I used to be haunting your life. Did it work? No, you were in every dream, every nightmare, every moment I thought I might not survive. That sounds exhausting. It was. Good. You owe me for the bullet scar. He laughed. Actually laughed. It was a sound she'd almost forgotten. Fair enough. How do I pay that debt? Buy me dinner. Tell me about the last 7 years. Don't try to be someone you're not. Just be honest. I can do that. They had dinner that night at a small restaurant near the coffee shop. Talked until closing. About prison. About Denver. About the ways they'd changed and the ways they'd stayed exactly the same. About the girl who spilled coffee and the man who'd ruled an empire and what happened when two people survived impossible things together. It wasn't romance. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was real. Honest. Two people trying to figure out if the connection they'd forged in blood and chaos could exist in the mundane reality of normal life. Chloe went back to Denver the next day, but she returned to Santa Fe 2 weeks later, then a month later, then every few weeks after that, building something slow, careful, testing whether the pull between them was trauma bonding or something deeper. 6 months later, she moved to Santa Fe permanently, got a job at a local accounting firm, rented an apartment 3 blocks from the coffee shop, started building a life that included Dario but wasn't consumed by him. They were careful, slow, neither willing to rush into something that had destroyed them before. But gradually the distance closed. Dinners became routine. Conversations deepened. The space between them filled with something that looked like trust. One night, they sat on her apartment balcony watching the sun set over the desert. Chloe's shoulder ached where the bullet had torn through. It always did when weather changed, a permanent reminder carved into her body. "Do you regret it?" Dario asked. He was looking at the scar partially visible above her tank top. "Taking that bullet? Sometimes. When it hurts. When I can't sleep because I'm dreaming about parking garages." She touched the scar absently, but mostly no, because if I hadn't taken it, you'd be dead, and I wouldn't be here. Whatever here is pretty good. Yeah, it is. He reached across the space between their chairs, took her hand. The contact was gentle, tentative, like he was still learning how to touch someone without destruction following. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "The normal relationship thing. I spent my entire adult life in a world where love was weakness, where caring about someone meant giving enemies ammunition. I don't know how to just be with someone without calculating angles." "Then don't calculate, just be." "That simple?" "Nothing's simple, but maybe that's the point. Maybe we stop trying to make it complicated and just see what happens when two people who survived impossible things try to build something ordinary." "Ordinary sounds nice." "It really does." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in colors that didn't exist anywhere else. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Life continuing, the world turning, people living and dying and fighting their own battles. But here on this balcony in Santa Fe, two people who'd walked through fire together were finally learning what it meant to exist in peace. Chloe thought about the girl who'd walked into Valenti Maritime Holdings 3 weeks behind on rent and desperate for any job that paid. Thought about how that girl would never recognize who she'd become. The scars, the nightmares, the knowledge of exactly how dark the world could be. But that girl had also never known she could be strong, could be brave, could stare down death and keep moving forward, could love someone despite every logical reason not to. "Thank you," she said quietly. Dario looked at her. "For what?" "For not firing me when I spilled coffee all over your expensive suit." He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Best mistake I ever made. Second best. The first was thinking you could scare me away. You're terrifying. I learned that fast." "Good. Someone has to keep you honest." "That someone being you? Who else would put up with your baggage?" "Fair point." They sat together as darkness fell and stars emerged. The desert stretched out around them, vast and beautiful and indifferent to human drama. Somewhere in New York, Diana Marchese was locked in a cell planning revenge that would never come. Somewhere in the past, a younger version of themselves was walking into disasters that would shape everything that followed. But here, now, in this moment, they were just two people holding hands on a balcony while the world continued spinning. Building something that might be love, or might be survival, or might be both tangled together so tightly they'd never be able to separate them. And for the first time in 7 years, Chloe Mercer felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of danger. Not the promise of safety. Just the quiet certainty that she'd survived the worst and emerged as someone capable of building something better. The clumsy girl who'd arrived with $43 and 19 days until eviction was gone forever. In her place was a woman who'd conquered an empire by accident, who'd learned that survival meant more than just staying alive, who'd discovered that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was choose to keep trying when everyone expected you to quit. And as the stars multiplied overhead and Dario's hand stayed steady in hers, Chloe realized the story had never been about coffee or conspiracies or bullets in parking garages. It had been about transformation, about the moment a person decides they're done being afraid and starts becoming something else entirely. About learning that strength doesn't mean never falling. It means getting back up every single time. And somewhere between the chaos and the blood and the impossible choices, a scared temp secretary had learned to stand beside kings without flinching. That was the real victory, not survival, evolution.